In Jerusalem, it's a tale of two settlement policies. On one hand, there's the announcement of the first new settlement in over 20 years, the Israeli government fulfilling its promise to residents who were evicted from the Omona outpost last month. And at the same time, Netanyahu informing his cabinet that Israel will shift its settlement policy and limit construction, all to please President Trump. How? This is what was laid out. Israel will continue construction when permissible within previously developed areas. Where it's not, Israel will allow construction in areas adjacent to those already developed. Where neither of those criteria are met due to legal, security, or topographical constraints, Israel will allow construction on the closest land possible to developed areas. And no new illegal outposts. With me to weigh in on that, just how new it is, Major General in the Reserves Yaakov Amidror. He served as National Security Advisor to the Israeli Premier and as the head of the National Security Council. Yaakov, thanks very much for being with us.
Good afternoon.
So when we hear that what is being painted as a new security policy, what does that mean to you, and is there any substantive change?
Yes, it's a great change. I mean, remember in the past, in 2010, the government of Israel was ready to freeze totally for 10 months the settlements building because the Americans said that by that they will bring Abu Mazen to negotiate. Abu Mazen didn't appear. Now the Americans are saying to open the doors for resume negotiations, Israel should put constraints on its building and do it only within the areas which had been built in the past. And as always, the government of Israel is very flexible and more than ready to sacrifice the issue of settlements for a real purpose, to bring back Abu Mazen to negotiations. So it's not a surprise for me that this new kind of policy was agreed between the Americans and the Israelis. The problem is, will Abu Mazen will appear?
At the same time, when we hear Netanyahu approving a new settlement for those Omona residents who were evicted, the first in over 2 decades, does that contradict all the rest?
No, I think it's a very unique situation in which people had been uprooted from their homes, and Israel would have to find a solution as early as possible. With the logic behind it is very clear. You have to you have to give those who had been taken out of them from their homes a new alternative. And this is a very unique situation. Israel is not going to build new settlements in the future as was agreed, and this is only something which, because of the situation, it's not going to happen.
You've witnessed the Israeli government in several different phases and its relationship with the U.S. From the inside. With this new administration, what we've seen so far, just how coordinated do you think this Israeli government is with the United States right now and is planning to be over Trump's term?
I don't know how the Trump term will be look like. It's only the beginning. It's too early to judge, but what we feel is the sentiment is in the right place. If you judge it from what had been said and is been saying by its representative in the United Nations, it is clear that the sentiment of this president and administration is in the right place from the Israeli point of view. But at the same time, disagreements can happen between two good friends. So I don't know what will be at the end of the day. Here, I think it's a very smart starting step, which was initiated by the Americans, to put some constraint on the Israeli building in the settlements, but at the same time, not to freeze it totally, something that the previous administration tried to do without success. So I hope that that will work and bring the Palestinians back for the negotiations. This is what the Prime Minister said in the past, and he intend and more than ready to say it in the future. Yes, we want to negotiate with the Palestinians about 2 states for the 2 people.
Yaakov Amidror, stay with us. I want to bring in a comment from Jibril Rajoub. He's a leading figure in the Fatah party, secretary of the Fatah Central Committee. He told our team this, speaking earlier in Bethlehem.
It's a provocative action against the whole world. Security Council last December, Trump administration, everybody. This is the way. This is the way that Mr. Netanyahu is behaving. I think this policy is a real threat to regional stability and security and even to global peace.
Back with Yaakov Amidror. Clearly, the Palestinian Authority does not see this as a step towards good faith. What's your reaction to what he says?
I know Jibril Rajoub many years, and it doesn't surprise him what he say. With all due respect, the problems today in the Middle East are so huge, and to say that this little settlement somewhere which is unknown, not even for Israelis, and for sure for most of the Palestinians, this is the threat for the region and even for the world. With all the respect, huge exaggeration. As always, you know, the connection between what they say and the real reality is many times is very far. Here, the administration made something very important. The administration said to the Israelis, you cannot build outside the areas of the settlements. Where it was built in the past, you can add more buildings. So no more barriers for any future negotiation. I think it's a very important step, which was accepted by the government of Israel, because the government of Israel really wants to negotiate. At the same time, we faced a very unique situation in which people have been, they lost their houses, they lost their homes, and we have commitment to solve the problem. So in some place in Judea and Samaria, in the West Bank, in a very unknown place for most of the people in Israel and within the Palestinians, a new settlement will be built, but at the same time, Israel took upon itself a big commitment that till the negotiations will be resumed by this administration, Israel will not build outside the areas which had been built in the past.
Yaakov, briefly then, if we're looking forward towards maybe the next step, sitting together, and certainly ahead of Mahmoud Abbas's trip to the White House in April, with Netanyahu's very right-wing government, a lot of pressure put from the right wing within his government, do you think politically, inside, he can actually move towards a negotiation with Abbas?
I believe that negotiation can be resumed. And Israel has a law that if any prime minister get to the situation in which there is an agreement, he should go through a referendum. And the referendum will be a place in which the right wing will try to convince the Israeli people not to accept if they think that it's not a good agreement. And the prime minister will try to get the positive answer from the people, and Israel is democracy, and based on this law, at the end of the day, it will be, the verdict will be in the referendum. And this is why I think the referendum law is so important. The legitimacy of any agreement will have to be, go through referendum in which the people will say if it is for it or against it.
Yaakov Amidror, thanks very much for weighing in for now.